Capping off any good quest, be it direct or arbitrary, should also be some actual rewards. No matter how good it feels, fighting and walking around would eventually feel a little needless if there wasn't anything to gain from it or anything to work towards. Most often you'll be collecting Korok seeds, wildlife materials, and orbs from shrines, which in turn you trade for more hearts and stamina. Then there's by far the most lucrative and abundant kind of treasure littered throughout Hyrule:
the weapons.
The arsenal at Link's disposal this time around is diverse, balanced, and encourages you to experiment with different fighting styles. From classic short swords and shields to claymores, spears, axes, hammers, magic rods, all sorts of fun tools of death. Boomerangs have been relegated from a core item that's always kept with you to a whole category of ranged weapons. Each different weapon type you use will change your approach and how Link can move in combat. I really have no strict preference between them because they each lend themselves beautifully to every fight, provided you use them correctly. And what use are weapons without opposition? Beyond Link himself, the variety of weapons has also shaped most of the enemies you'll encounter. Bokoblins and Moblins are like the cavemen or Neanderthals of Hylian civilization, minus the fact they're not extinct. Thus, they resort to clubs big and small, fitted with spikes and bones, or rusted swords left behind out in the battlefields. Lizalfos tend to prefer spears and boomerangs, slithering across the ground to jump out at you, striking from a distance or with a quick pounce. More tactile, slippery, and agile. I hate them. Then, we get the real powerhouse party crashers to deal with. Lynels can use swords, spears, clubs, shields, and bows to almost perfectly mimic Link's fighting style, and to show off their buff humanoid upper body. These guys are definitely my favorite to fight. It's always such an epic standoff when you first approach one, or see it in the distance with its mighty battle roar. But of course, they all meet the same fate. Breath of the Wild's weapons have given way to an incredibly expressive form of conflict resolution, never achieved before in a Zelda game, requiring your constant attention to everything around you when that anxiety-inducing piano shows up. Speaking of that piano, I didn't even mention Guardians. These things were based on how big the Octoroks were interpreted to be in Zelda 1, and were refitted with that Sheikah sci-fi fantasy theme, and boy howdy, these things are fun. At first, they're the biggest threat you can encounter apart from Lynels. However, unlike Lynels, these things are everywhere, even right at the start of the game in front of the plateau shrines. For the first half of your entire adventure, you'll be dodging and running like hell from these things, no matter the circumstances. Their laser beam eye can take out like 10 hearts in one shot. But then, you learn their weaknesses. A shot to the eye will stun them for a few seconds. I'm pretty sure that's just one of the 10 commandments, and I can't help but notice how weak and flimsy those legs are compared to the rest of you. Eventually, you find arrows and weapons made specifically for Guardians. Then you can truly raise hell and hunt them at your leisure. Moblins, Bokoblins, Lizalfos, Odalis's, Hinox's, Lynels, and Guardians, they will not hesitate to kill you. Denizens of Ganon's Malice, terrorizing other citizens of Hyrule.
They are rage, brutal, without mercy. But you will be worse. Rip and tear until it is done.
Link is an absolute war machine, launching arrows at multiple enemies in seconds before even touching the ground, or going mad with a barrage of strikes before a Bokoblin can follow through with a full swing of the club. Now, the first bit of criticism that always rears its head when on the topic of weapons is, indeed, their durability. All of them, including shields and bows, can only withstand a certain amount of usage before breaking. Early on, it can certainly feel like everything is a little too fragile, like every individual strike must be accounted for, or else you've already wasted the item before it's even broken. I too was initially kind of shaky about this idea, but in due time, not only did I start to gradually accept this system, but embrace it. After putting some time into it, I began to understand the flow that Nintendo was aiming for, and found myself with plenty of weapons at my disposal at all times. It began to click how to balance weak weapons with strong ones, and when to use which for what scenario. Even in the moments where I was left completely armless, I was motivated to experiment with other ways of attacking and scooping up weapons off of fallen foes. And sometimes I was dissuaded from the fight altogether and have to make a vow to return and enact my revenge. They sought to teach me a lesson, and I certainly learned it. When you're given a sword that works the same on every enemy with upgrades to that weapon coming in increments throughout the game, it empowers you for sure, but it hardly feels like it was earned. Take Twilight Princess. Even my pre-Breath of the Wild Zelda love has this flaw. You begin with the wooden sword, perfect for the tutorial, nothing wrong there. Later you end up with the Orden sword, which serves as a worthwhile blade all the way up until you find the Master Sword. From that point on, your blade does not change, improve, or diminish. It's only through the teachings of the hero's shade that your abilities further improve. And these lessons are an incredibly fun part of the game, as they tie together the lore of Zelda with mechanics by having a past hero bestow his knowledge onto the hero of today. But as great as their inclusion was, they still fell just a bit short of feeling like abilities that we've earned. There was no boss or obstacle in the way of these things, just a typical Zelda music puzzle and a tutorial for each move. Because they're given to you and only in a certain order, they feel more like tokens of progression instead of abilities you've studied and mastered. I will reiterate, story-wise, great idea, but just falls a little short of its potential. Back to Breath of the Wild, where the progression of your abilities seems to have taken the complete opposite approach. Now you're given all the items you need in the form of runes. You already have the combat maneuvers like backflips and shield parrying, accompanied by even more cool tricks like slowing down time with a perfect dodge, all immediately available to you. Now, finding better weapons is your reward for mastering this combat with your initial sticks and clubs, and by proxy finding awesome locations and stronger enemies that hold them. Instead of unlocking abilities for my all-powerful sword, I feel encouraged to master the abilities I already possess. And of course, it's impossible to talk about weapons in Zelda without further discussing the Master Sword itself. And as far as its use in-game, I think it's kinda logical how it works. It breaks just like any other weapon, but not permanently. Instead, it recharges after a few minutes. Clever enough idea. It then gives you a reliable weapon, yet you still need to find and earn it first, and you still have a penalty for overusing it. Not to mention it glows whenever you're around Guardians or facing one of Ganon's forms. Spoiler alert, I guess. And it'll deal double damage. And also, it'll, you know. All things considered, Breath of the Wild has such an amazing diversity when it comes to just about every element of combat that it enhances and weaves into the exploration seamlessly, rather than separating itself as a different mode of play. I believe The Legend of Zelda is at its best when it embraces the journey over the destination, utility and creativity, instead of just a means of progression. And because of that, with all of the parts at play, Breath of the Wild is my perfect Legend of Zelda.